on average, for a low ACV product, it takes an average of 34 website touch points before they MQL. That means before they even raise their hand to want to talk to you, it takes 34 touch points, and that's for a low ACV product. First, technically sound. Second, the actual copy on the page as it pertains to your audience. That is like the two components, and we haven't even gotten to the CRO and optimization part yet. Walk into this restaurant, it has all of these ingredients, and then you can choose how you want to put these ingredients together. So you can choose a burrito bowl or a taco or a quesadilla, but they have these core ingredients of a set of meats, vegetables, toppings, right? We're going to do essentially the same thing with landing pages, which is we're going to create all the ingredients first before you even put the landing pages together. In terms of types of landing pages, we're again going to go back to looking at that buyer's journey. So what product category are you playing in, right? What are the capabilities, most compelling capabilities, features, and outcomes of that product, right? For this specific segment. What is the most specific and relevant social proof, right? That's going to be another ingredient. What are the common objections? That's another ingredient. And then finally, the ask, which is, are you asking for a free trial or product sign up? Are you asking for a meeting, right? And then what are the steps? If they do decide that's what they want to do, what can they expect from the process? If I can't read it and quickly understand what you do, it's going to be a misstep. You know, if I require too much education, it's going to be a misstep. You don't want to add to the cognitive load of the user, right? They're already consuming way too much information. So at that point, I think you can make it easy on yourself as a company, as a marketer, to just say, if the only job of this section is to get the user to maybe read the next section, make one or two simple decisions between two choices. Either I scroll down and read some more, or I'm ready to engage, or maybe they leave. They're not ready just yet, but they're thinking about it. They come back at some point later. Cool. That's amazing. You're putting the buyer first. This is what we enable you to do in the most summarized sense. Here's our product category, and here's who we are for. Here's a sneak peek into how the product works if you're curious. We've helped other companies just like you. We understand that this is the problem you're facing. And here's our solution to that problem. Here's how we've solved it for other people, testimonials. If you're interested in more, you can contact us, and here's what you can expect after you do. We'll reach out to you in 24 hours. We will talk about your specific use cases, and we're happy to give you a customized demo. Chatbot on their website, I will tell them to remove the script on the landing pages for paid ads, because they might be starting to get interested in the copy, and then you have a little, and you're just like, what is that? What is that? You know, so it's like a goldfish, because we're spread so thin already. I don't want it to be distracting. So I'm very focused on the user consuming the information, that I don't want a lot of distractions on the page that could potentially take them away. So I'm more like in the primary CTA camp. And if they make it all the way to the bottom and they want some more information, I do have some like secondary and tertiary CTAs that I place in the bottom. And that's, again, more of a data point. You just need a core 5 to 10. You can come back and look at it over time, and it's going to pay you dividends over time, right? You can go on vacation, you can work on other projects, and this is just humming in the background. I've just accepted the fact that B2B landing pages, a 6 quality score, has just become acceptable, right? It's like, wow, that's actually pretty good, getting a 6 on B2B landing page. For me, with your regular website metrics, you need to look at your return visits, how much time they're spending on the site, on the landing page, but then also coming back onto your main site, right? Those are some signals. Obviously, any direct conversions from the landing pages, we're going to be happy to receive, but do not panic if the conversion rate or the conversion volume is not high on the page itself. If it gives you the data to show you click activity, hover activity, scroll activity, and where they're spending the most time and consuming the information on the page, I don't care what tool you use, right?
So just tell us about yourself. What are you up to right now?
Okay. Yeah. So my name's Tas Bober, and I worked in-house leading digital and website teams or departments for most of my career. So I've kind of stayed in the digital marketing website space and specifically for B2B. And just the last year, I started my own consultancy and now focused and niched down into landing page strategy for B2B companies as well, specifically B2B SaaS. So that's kind of where I focus a lot of my content. A lot of my engagements start out that way, but I also do have clients who will ask me to expand and do more general advising. So I do have those types of engagements as well.
Okay, that's awesome. So I was just going through your profile and I was very intrigued at learning about CRO. CRO is, and for your definition of CRO is like consumption rate optimization. So tell us more. What's that?
Yeah, one of the things that I just see floating around, and it's kind of accepted, tactically in marketing as a whole, B2C, B2B, is this idea of conversion rate optimization. And I think it works in some cases, but the more I thought about it, and we were trying to figure out, do landing pages work or not? And they're primarily measured on conversions. But the issue I found with that is the B2B buying journey is not linear, right? Even just today, Gaetano, big top voice on LinkedIn, he talked about how one of his landing pages has 0 conversions, but he's not killing the campaign because he's looking at the overall paths that the buyer takes. They come to the landing page, they go back to the main website, they browse a little bit, they interact with chat. And he says that, I might be quoting him wrong, but I think he said 23 touch points before they actually converted because they were consuming the information, and the paid landing page was one of those touch points. So that's when I was putting kind of 2 and 2 together, throughout this time and working with clients, that the landing page itself and direct conversions are not a determining factor of whether a paid landing page or a paid program is successful or not. There's so much more that happens behind the scenes because we're not talking about a $10, $20 pant purchase. We are talking about, at least a 5-figure ACV product. If you are sales led, it's probably even worse. And I love to quote the statistic, but Hockey Stack did this whole study and said, on average, for a low ACV product, it takes an average of 34 website touch points before they MQL. That means before they even raise their hand to want to talk to you, it takes 34 touch points, and that's for a low ACV product. So I just don't think that CRO in a traditional sense for conversion rate optimization works for B2B, because you can't just change a few button colors on the page and try to trick your user into scheduling a demo and giving them your having them give you their information and their time because you change a button color from red to green. I know that CRO has so much more built into that, and I do adopt some methodologies, but I just think that we're looking in the wrong place for measurement and success of these paid programs for B2B.
Okay, so that's a very good start, I would say, to this conversation. So, okay, let's just get deeper into this. So somebody has to start this process of optimizing their landing pages. What should be the first step, and then how should they think about it?
I'm going to start with the technical functionality first, because if your landing page doesn't load, it doesn't matter what it says, what you have on there. You have 3 seconds to get a user to go to the next step, whether it is, your page is loading. Now they're starting to consume the information. Well, they're not going to consume anything if the page isn't loading. So you need to make sure that the foundations are good first, right? You're not going to sit there and decorate a house before you actually have, the framework up. And so for me, I'm always telling people, you need to make sure that your site's loading, it's technically sound, and it doesn't require a lot, right? I'm not saying go do some like major technical SEO. Just make sure that it's loading quickly. You don't have any obstacles from a technical standpoint. That's always the first thing. The second piece, and this is where people get tripped up because they think, oh yeah, we need to just put the form up here, we put a little bit copy here, and then cut out all the exit points, and then they're just gonna convert. We're just gonna do it. We're gonna try 2 or 3 different headlines and it'll work. But I think with B2B, we're so information and research heavy that more information serves a better purpose than less. And for half of my clients who have very technical ICPs, like, DevOps, SecOps, data, compliance, these are the ICPs that they have. The more technical the audience, the more information they need. Otherwise, they are extremely skeptical, right? So you need to respond to what your ICP is going to consume best. Selling to marketers can be easier or harder depending on who you ask, because we are very desensitized to a lot of stuff. But we're more responsive perhaps to punchy marketing and concise and flashy, right? But a technical ICP is going to be more responsive to something that doesn't actually look like marketing. It's more educational, more value. So first, technically sound. Second, the actual copy on the page as it pertains to your audience. That is like the 2 components, and we haven't even gotten to the CRO and optimization part yet. It's making sure that everything has the buyer first. I always say I'm a buyer's advocate marketer because I try to put aside my biases, my gut too, and think about, if I were them, what would be the information I need before I even talk to this company? So that's kind of the 2 big components.
Okay. So in terms of you're running now paid ads, so how many types of landing pages can you make? So is it like just one page with this lead form, converts, or are there sort of like other types that are available out there for the people?
Yeah. I don't specialize in a lot of top of funnel type landing pages. I actually think that marketers are pretty good at that in general with the gated content, webinars, event signups, right? Those types of pages, I feel like follow a lot of those CRO principles because it's a very low friction ask. You're just saying, hey, attend this for free. Give us your email. We'll send you the calendar invite. Hey, download this report, right? So perhaps with those, you can create senses of urgency, but you're still not asking a ton of the buyer. I focus on those foundational, more middle of funnel, bottom of funnel, foundational campaigns and landing pages that just need to be alive forever. I get asked all the time, okay, at what point do I decide to shut this off? I'm like, never. Unless literally the company ends or you don't have the product anymore. Those are probably the scenarios you would shut these down. So the ones that I recommend, I'm going to go into a little bit of a rant, but and actually, I don't know. I've used this analogy so many times about Chipotle, but sometimes some countries don't have Chipotle and so they don't get it. But for those who don't understand what Chipotle is, you walk into this restaurant, it has all of these ingredients, and then you can choose how you want to put these ingredients together. So you can choose a burrito bowl or a taco or a quesadilla. But they have these core ingredients of a set of meats, vegetables, toppings, right? We're going to do essentially the same thing with landing pages, which is we're going to create all the ingredients first before you even put the landing pages together, right? So the meats are going to be your value propositions of your product and or your segment, right? So if you have a single product and you have 3 or 4 segments, the value propositions are going to be different per segment. If you have multiple products, same ICP, same segment, you're going to have multiple value propositions per product, right? So per product and per segment. That's going to be a lot of your meat. And then asking, what product category are we playing with? Not what you want to call it, right? I'm not going to fight the category pirates, right? I'm not going to do that. But for example, one of my clients, they call their software security questionnaire automation software. But what users are calling it is, I need a vendor risk assessment software. Totally different. So I marry that internal external perspective. What are you calling your product and your product category? What are users actually looking for, and where's the reference point in their brain, right? And so in terms of types of landing pages, we're again going to go back to looking at that buyer's journey. So what product category are you playing in, right? What are the capabilities, most compelling capabilities, features, and outcomes of that product, right? For this specific segment. What is the most specific and relevant social proof, right? That's going to be another ingredient. What are the common objections? That's another ingredient. And then finally, the ask, which is, are you asking for a free trial or product sign up? Are you asking for a meeting, right? And then what are the steps? If they do decide that's what they want to do, what can they expect from the process? And those ingredients, then together, we start Tetrising them and making them into these landing pages, which I have like 5 to 6 frameworks. I'm not very hell bent on like, we got to stick to these exact frameworks, right? They're more guidelines and it's different company by company. But in general, if I had to, there's going to be a primary offer. If you have multiple products or multiple segments, nobody knows who your company is or what they do. This is their first touch point. It's a page that kind of closely mimics your homepage, but the marketer has a lot more autonomy about what goes on that page. They can be more specific and test messaging. It's going to be your overall value proposition for your company, right? Your general logos, general value propositions, testimonials, maybe a list of the products or segments that you target. Then there's going to be product details. So now say you have 3 products, you want to have one specific page per product, very specific to that page, very specific to that segment. You're going to do comparison because people are most likely going to say, okay, Xgrid's alternatives, right? So you're going to have to acknowledge, okay, if we didn't exist as a company, what are they doing or how are they accomplishing their workflow, or who are they using? Likely they're doing it manually. It's pain in the butt. They can't, like they're wasting a lot of time, admin burden. They're using tools that are not really meant for it, or they are perhaps using a competitor, but the competitor is not doing XYZ that you're doing. And then finally, there's a trust page, which is heavy on the social proof, what our customers are saying about us when we're not in the room. And then pricing, which I would strongly recommend companies show their pricing, even a starting range, or demo. And demo is probably the only page where I would say you have a form up top. But one key aspect is telling them what to expect if they fill out the form. And that kind of lowers the barrier to friction. So it's almost like a whole buyer's journey in this like landing page ecosystem, right? You don't need 60, you don't need 1. You kind of need like 5 to 10, depending on your product mix and ICP mix.
Okay, so what you're suggesting is that, okay, if you're targeting certain keywords, rather than having just one landing page, maybe opt for 5, 6 different pages which act as a bouquet for that particular offering, right?
Yeah, and you want it to have some relevancy to the keyword, right? So if someone is looking for, like meeting scheduling software, right? So then they can go to like Calendly's main page that talks about, we are meeting scheduling software, right? And Calendly has like 4 different segments and ICPs that they target: marketing, HR, sales, customer success. But on this primary page where someone's just evaluating, is this a potential option, right, that I should consider? Who is Calendly? What do they do? That's going to be the primary offer page. And then maybe down below, it's more of a choose your own adventure and say, hey, we serve marketing specifically, sales, customer success, etc. And then going down that path. And then if someone was looking for calendar scheduling software for marketers, they can now go to a product specific page from Calendly that's very much focused on marketers' use cases, problems, the features that matter to the marketer, their exact outcomes, and then social proof from other marketers, right? Same thing for sales, customer success on. Now, if someone's saying, I want to actually know who the other alternatives are in the market, who are Calendly's competitors or Calendly's alternatives, that's an ad group, right? So now they can come to this page, Calendly owns the narrative, and they say, hey, you know what? There are lots of options in the market. Let's explore them objectively and say, okay, here are the problems you have. Here's what, an ideal world would look like for a meeting scheduling app. Here's what we offer. And here are the limitations of, some of the other tools and the benefits if you want to go that way too. And working as a guide, not a seller. And then if someone says Calendly reviews, most of the time people don't even bid on this. They just like let it go to G2 or whatever and let the story say itself. But I think you can be specific here. If someone searches for Calendly reviews, they can open up what I call the trust page. It has, a compelling headline like 20 million marketing professionals trust it's not all marketing professionals, but you know what I'm saying, like 5 million marketing professionals trust Calendly for all their meeting scheduling needs. And then it can go down to light proof, so more proof from other marketers. You're going to be heavier on like long form proof, and then reinforcing the value propositions and making the ask for a free trial. And same thing, then pricing and demo is self-explanatory, but if they go Calendly pricing, you can check what pricing is most compelling for them. And then you can do Calendly demo if you're more sales, a larger team, and go to the Calendly demo page. So that's kind of how I think about it, is like, where are they in that journey? Are they exploring what are my options? But the one thing in common is it has to be an ICP that's generally problem aware. They know they need something, and then they go down this path of putting these companies on a short list for evaluation.
Okay, so this is great. You said that the ICP is problem aware, but let's just suppose if you're trying to create a new category. So then what happens?
I'm not a category creation expert. I'm going to totally butcher it. I have opinions on it. I think that, there's a saying, there's nothing new under the sun. And so I think that companies can get creative about what they're calling their subcategory. But the issue with that is if you're not evangelizing it and it's not something that is easily digestible, it's going to miss the mark, right? So, for example, I position against conversion rate optimization. I talk a lot about it, so people know that it's kind of in the same area, but I'm saying, hey, sure, conversion rate, but we maybe need to consider consumption rate, right? But if you go to my page on LinkedIn or my website, I don't just say consumption rate optimization landing pages. People are like, what is that? If that's their first interaction with me. So what do I do? When you come to my page, the first thing you see is landing pages. It's universal language. People understand what that is. So I always caution with category creation because very few companies are really good at it, I think, or who have been able to do that successfully. Uber, right? Calendly did it to some extent, but they positioned around the problem. Scheduling meetings sucks. We make it easier. You can just use this tool, right? But Uber was like ride sharing, wasn't necessarily new. People share taxis and stuff all the time, but it's like, oh, using someone else's car. So I think that a lot of category creation are subcategories of larger ones, or just a little slight pivot into something a little bit different, right? But generally, they're giving people still a reference point of what that is. And so if someone is not problem aware, and say I'm running ads on LinkedIn, and they see one of my posts or they see one of my ads, and I'm saying, here's why CRO doesn't work for B2B. And they're like, that's interesting. Why wouldn't it work for B2B? Right? So then they read on and I say, well, the buyer's journey is not linear, right? Here's an example of a non-linear buyer's journey. And we should be looking at consumption signals, which will eventually lead to conversions. Oh, okay. So that's where I think that's more acceptable versus like, I'm going to create a new religion right now and call it, something else. And people are like, So it can't be like too wildly out there. So sometimes I think companies get carried away when they're like, we are the ultimate revenue, user generated something or the other all in one platform, and you're like, what is that? It's like, I don't understand what that is. And then you don't have like people to evangelize that category too. So I think Anthony Pieri, I don't know if you follow them. Anthony Pieri and Robert.
Been on the talk.
Oh, he has been on this?
Yeah.
He has a lot of opinions on category creation. But he always talks about like a category is created when essentially there's competitors in the market and more of them come into it. So like, Salesforce and the CRM's a popular category. Someone started it, but then you had competitors kind of enter it and it's become more of like a term. You can't just be like, tomorrow I'm going to create this category. Maybe you're the only one. People don't understand it. You don't start to see competitors surface. So not my strong suit, but that's kind of my opinion on it is if I can't read it and quickly understand what you do, it's going to be a misstep. If I require too much education, it's going to be a misstep. So.
Okay, that's awesome. So these are great opinions. So somebody, okay, let's just talk about the first folder. Okay, so you just entered the website. Okay, first folder is there. What should you do?
As a company?
No. Yeah, the first fold is there. Yeah, as a company, what should you do? What should be on that first fold? And what is the importance of that first fold?
Yeah, so I know that typically the opinion is you come to a landing page or a web page on the main website and you think, I need to somehow twist this user's arm and make sure that they convert. And so you bombard them with this primary CTA nonstop, right? And in a lot of cases, a lot of companies will do multiple CTAs. I mean, I posted one, I think it was like Zoom, like way back. They might have changed it by now, but they had 7 CTAs just above the fold. 7 different ones. Webinar, get a demo, free trial, download now. It was insane. It was just everywhere. And I think that there is something like attention, deficit that happens. You start to spread your attention too thin or it gets too overwhelming. I think there's like a statistic that we make like 10,000 decisions a day or something like that. Yeah. You don't want to add to the cognitive load of the user, right? They're already consuming way too much information. So at that point, I think you can make it easy on yourself as a company, as a marketer, to just say, if the only job of this section is to get the user to maybe read the next section, make 1 or 2 simple decisions between 2 choices. Either I scroll down and read some more, or I'm ready to engage, or maybe they leave. They're not ready just yet, but they're thinking about it. They come back at some point later. Cool. That's amazing. You're putting the buyer first. So writing the copy to say, this section is going to lead me to the next section, right? And so this is where some of that like user design kind of comes into play. I read this book called The Conversion Code, and he says, if copy is king on a landing page, then design is queen. It's not one or the other, right? So utilizing white space appropriate, but maybe even having a peek of that second section and what the title of that section is. But in the first fold, I would say you want to start with something that's most compelling. Some people try to lead with the problem. Calendar scheduling made easy, something like that. Or finally, an easy way to schedule meetings. Or saying it takes an average of 3 emails to schedule a meeting, or 7 emails, or whatever it is, right? Or scheduling emails is tedious. So that's kind of like one of 2 ways you can go. You can take more of a positive route and talk about what the capability is of the product that's going to enable the user to do something. Or you can just say, hey, I empathize with this problem. I typically lead with capability because you want them to feel a little more empowered, right? And say, here's what you can do now. And then go into like more of a problem section that actually talks deeper about the actual problem that they're experiencing. But I think that's where good copywriting comes into play. But them seeing, okay, there's a little peek of the problem section coming up. and then scrolling down and saying, okay, what is this problem? And I think that's the thing is like, we either information stuff all these pages, because one of the things I look at every time I go to a landing page or a website, I'm like, let me see what the train of thought here was with each of these sections. Do they really lead to one another? Most times it's not. It's a stakeholder pot roast, right? Here's a hero, 16 people had an opinion on it, so it's all fluff. Then you have like a CTA right underneath it for some like top of funnel content, even though that's not what the page is about. Then we go into like, oh, look at all our logos and our awards and how great they are. Then you have some like descriptions about the product, but we start to feature dump. It gets really long. Then you have some product documentation link. Then you have a link to all your partners. Then you have the integrations. It's like, we've just done this like SaaS vomit on the page, right? And instead, wouldn't this be a better story? This is what we enable you to do in the most summarized sense. Here's our product category and here's who we are for. Here's a sneak peek into how the product works if you're curious. We've helped other companies just like you. We understand that this is the problem you're facing. Okay, and here's our solution to that problem. Here's how we've solved it for other people, testimonials. If you're interested in more, you can contact us, and here's what you can expect after you do. We'll reach out to you in 24 hours. We will talk about your specific use cases, and we're happy to give you a customized demo. Is that a story, or is that not a story? Yeah.
Okay. So let's just talk about the length then. So what's the optimal length then? Like, is it like a long sales page, like you write the entire thing, or you keep it concise? So what's your take on that?
I don't think that long copy is necessarily a bad thing. However, I do have some customers who might fight me on it. And I think it really just depends on the product. So going back to my clients who have more of a technical ICP, they don't mind the long copy because their actual websites might have too much copy already, and I'm already making it shorter, even though they're like 4 or 5 long, long paragraphs. But they are more interested in the substance of what I've written, right? Because they want to be able to explain their product because it is very complex. They want to be able to do it in layman's terms, but not really dismiss these like important functionalities for developers and security ops and those folks, right? So it really depends on the client and the company and who the stakeholder is. Now, a company that might have a lot of brand equity, where people just know who they are in general, what they do, if their ICP is targeting more marketers or sales, HR, those kind of things, I think they prefer punchy copy because they can kind of get away with it, right? Like Coca-Cola can have a billboard that just says, like quench or something like that or something, just something completely vague and one worded, but it has so much brand equity because we all know who Coke is. They're just keeping you at the forefront of their minds. And I think there's less education that needs to happen on the product. The less brand equity you have, right? And the more education you need on the product because it's a very complex product, I think they're more privy to having longer form text. So I hate when someone's like, it depends, but it kind of depends. In this case, I would approach it a little bit differently per client and per product mix.
So, okay. So in terms of CTA, so should there be just one? The one, that's it? So there's no way to go back or do anything?
Yeah, this is where I will adopt some CRO practices on landing pages. A couple of it is, that decision fatigue that we talked about. I try to minimize that. So, say, for example, if my clients have a chatbot on their website, I will tell them to remove the script on the landing pages for paid ads because they might be starting to get interested in the copy and then you have a little and you're just like, what is that? What is that? So it's like a goldfish. because we're spread so thin already. I don't want it to be distracting. So I'm very focused on the user consuming the information, that I don't want a lot of distractions on the page that could potentially take them away. So I'm more like in the primary CTA camp. And if they make it all the way to the bottom and they want some more information, I do have some like secondary and tertiary CTAs that I place in the bottom. And that's, again, more of a data point. So, it's usually linking, it's a minimal footer, it's linking to another landing page. So I can see the logical jump from they're on this product page, then they went to pricing. But it's another pricing landing page that I'm testing, not the main one on their site, just one from this little landing page ecosystem. So I look at those things. I'm very open to having my opinions changed, because that's the whole point of like testing and iterating. And one of those things was like the navigation. I've had clients fight with me to keep the navigation on that. I'm like, no, because this is not part of your existing website. You can't think of it like that. It's a little playground and testing environment where you get to test what actually resonates. So you don't want to distract them. You don't want to convolute your data, right? But I changed my opinion with the navigation. I think that having an anchored one will give you additional, it'll give you additional data points and kind of tell the user what to expect in the story, right? So you have like the problems, the capabilities, testimonials, FAQs, and finally, book a demo or whatever. And that's how I found out that the FAQ block and the testimonial blocks were the two most engaged with on any landing page. And those are typically all at the bottom. So yeah, I mean, I don't like a lot of exit points. Primary CTA all the way through, secondary CTA, if you have to put it all the way in the bottom.
Okay, that's great. So let's just talk about the source. So the traffic is coming from paid ads.
Yes.
And obviously you're running brand campaigns and you're not running non-brand terms, and then you're running your campaigns against competitor keywords. So does that change your landing page, or is it like just one landing page will do everything?
I think if someone says, like Calendly for marketers, and then if someone says meeting scheduling tool for marketers, those can both go to the Calendly product page for marketers that I've created. So that was another piece that when I was creating these frameworks and thinking about how to do this, and I spent quite a bit of time before I like launched and told people or whatever. But right now, more than ever, marketing teams are strapped for resources, budget, time. They're doing too much. That's why they probably never go back and test new messaging or look at old campaigns that they've launched, because they're under this excruciating pressure to like keep launching and keep doing more and keep getting more leads and doing this stuff. And so they have to keep shifting. I wanted to give them something that wasn't like more stuff to manage, right? Sometimes they'll come to me and say, we're running 60 landing pages. I'm like, why? Well, we're running it per keyword because we want to get that relevancy score up. I'm like, you can do that with one page for multiple keywords, right? You don't have to do it for every single keyword. So that's what I'm trying to get them to do, is like, you just need a core 5 to 10. You can come back and look at it over time, and it's going to pay you dividends over time, right? You can go on vacation, you can work on other projects, and this is just humming in the background. So I try to do the like more with less type of thing, but in a good sense, which is, here's just not another thing for you to manage. Here's finished copy. Here's how to build a self-testing roadmap. And then just like keep going from there. So those keywords, non-brand, brand, they're still going to go there. But like one of the things that I'm going to write about, I haven't yet, so it'll be the first time we talk about it here. People are in the like quality score versus not quality score camp, in ads. And it's funny, for years, I've just accepted the fact that B2B landing pages, a 6 quality score has just become acceptable, right? It's like, wow, that's actually pretty good, getting a 6 on B2B landing page. And then I was thinking about it a little bit more, and I'm like, okay, well, at my last company, we adopted some of this methodology and we had like 8s and 9s. And I was like, wow, this must be just like something that was an exception to the norm because I've never achieved that with other companies. And then I realized, oh, it's because we were doing landing pages wrong. And the thing is, like, at the end of the day, you can say, oh, I hate quality score and it's not really a good metric, but Google's using it as a signal in order to show your ad or not, right? To the user and the frequency at which you show up. And it impacts the cost. And maybe not entirely. There's a lot of things that are in play there. But if you can control this metric, why wouldn't you try to control it? And so that's the other piece, is just like weaving in some of that, the keyword stuff, making sure that you're delivering on the promise of your ads. So if someone, I always love to use this example. If someone typed in pants and they saw an ad, right, for Old Navy saying, yeah, we have pants, come check it out, right? And you click on that and then you get thrown on the homepage, you'd be annoyed. Now you're like trying to look for pants all over the site and you're just annoyed because you see hats and accessories and flip-flops and you're like, I need pants. And so that's kind of the thing. It's like you deliver on the promise of the ad with the keyword relevancy, but you don't have to do it by keyword, right? You don't have to create inefficiencies for yourself.
Okay, so you're saying that so all the lovers of this what you call SCAD, like single keyword ad groups, and having an every ad group like having a different landing page. So that's not your strategy, right?
Not my strategy, because I think that if you have the resource to do it, by all means, but I do think that it can be a nightmare to manage and marketers just don't have time. And I was one of those marketers who just didn't have time, let alone going back and optimizing and testing and reading the data. I couldn't even keep track of them. Like they're all in a spreadsheet somewhere. And I'm like, what's the difference between this and this? Oh, it was one keyword change in the hero. I'm like, like there, we don't need that. You know what I mean? So, yeah. So it's kind of like you're going to make some sacrifices here and there, right? But I'd rather them have some core pages that they can manage and massage over time that they never have to kill, versus this other thing that every time they open the Google sheet and there's like 60 landing pages there, they're just filled with dread. Trying to met. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So now let's just come towards the analytics part of things. So so there are quite a few, many. So few are very common.
Yeah.
So which one are your favorite? Like which one would you recommend? Like this is like a must for any CRO optimization.
Yeah. And by CRO, we mean consumption, right? So
okay. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Okay, so I think that vanity metrics get a bad rap. Somebody somewhere said vanity metrics are terrible, so everybody decided that they were bad and they don't like to report on them at all, or you'll find leadership getting an allergic reaction anytime you bring up like impressions and clicks and stuff like that. But I think that it's all part of the story, right? If you were telling the story of Three Little Pigs and you started it off and you didn't talk about how one built it with sticks and the other one did it with hay and the third one did it with bricks, but then you just went into like, there were three little pigs, they lived in a house and a wolf came and they started to blow it down and they're like, what? So the context needs to be there, right? So vanity metrics get a bad rap, but they are either positive or negative indicators of what's to come later, right? So if you're looking at those metrics, and sure, yeah, impressions, clicks, whatever, but the biggest thing is assuming that your targeting is very tight, which most of them is not, right? But assuming you're sending the right people to your landing pages, the first thing is not to panic if you don't get a lot of on-page conversions. You might be spending $10,000 and like, oh my God, this landing page is not getting anything. The volume is so low. I'm getting like a 1% conversion rate. I'm just going to kill it. How many times have you made those decisions? We'll wait 2 weeks. We'll be like, well, we're going to kill it. But then when we started digging further, we realized the ones that actually had the least amount of conversions on page were the ones that were driving the most pipeline. And this was because they were coming back to the main website after a few days because they couldn't find the landing page again, right? Okay. And then they were converting by going directly to the demo link on the main website. Internally, it's saying, well, SEO's got to be working because they're coming in direct from the site. We don't need to run paid anymore. Kill it. pull the budget, pull it, right? How many times has
Yeah.
leadership said that?
Yeah.
And so that's where I'm saying that it's kind of like that rising tide lifts all boats, right? So paid is just one way that's helping you get that distribution, being there when your user is searching for something that's relatable to your product. But you need to look at the appropriate signals to see, is this going to lead to something down the line? So if typically, on average, users return to your site twice, right? And now they're starting to return to your site 4 or 5 times, that's a signal that things are going in the right direction. They're coming back, they're exploring more. If the time that they spent on your site was a minute and now it's 2, and those have gone up, those are indications, right? What's the average B2B sales cycle? 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, in some cases 3 years. Like, it just depends on the product.
Yeah.
But then we will make rash decisions about campaigns within a week or 2 weeks or even a quarter, right?
Yeah.
But they say in B2B, the marketing you do today impacts your pipeline and revenue next quarter or next year. So we need to give those signals an appropriate space when we're reporting to the CMO or whatever. And that's something I only started to do towards the end of before I went out on consulting. And I'm like, dang, I wish I had that wisdom to do it before. And we would do one slide that was, here are the positive indications of consumption. And it would be users, we have the same amount of reach as we did before. Users are returning to our site twice as much as they were before. They're spending 3 times as much time on our website. This blog from 10 years ago is resurfacing because Meta is in the news again. Or we ran this Meta campaign that didn't get any direct conversions, but we saw a lift in content being consumed on the site. And guess what? Our overall hand raisers have gone up since the launch of this campaign by X amount. And it may not be direct to the campaign, but there's a correlation between launching this, creating more distribution, and then seeing your direct and overall hand raisers coming in from organic and direct going up. So I like to look and connect the dots there, right? We're almost like investigative marketers where we're looking at that. Some people are going to be like, well, that's a stretch. And I'm like, yeah, but guess what? Doing specific channel measurement isn't working either. Because if your company has, I was just telling someone yesterday, I had a company who did first touch attribution. Well, guess who got all the credit for all the pipeline and revenue generated from marketing? Content syndication.
Oh, okay.
Because content syndication is basically glorified list buying. We pay someone, they give us a list. That is the first entry into our CRM. First touch or last touch gets the final attribution. So if the first touch is content syndication, we've hit them with email, paid search, all of that stuff in between. And then the last one is they come direct or organic to the website and they convert. Those are the only 2 channels worth investing in, right? So there's so much flawed in channel specific measurement and attribution. I went on a rant, sorry. I'm very passionate.
No, this is great. This is great. But how do we, again, so let's obviously attribution is a huge challenge, right?
Yeah.
So multi-touch, single touch, first, last, you have all of those models that are out there. So my question would again be, so does Google Analytics and does any crazy eggs and all of those add value?
Yeah. Thank you for bringing that up. So for me, with your regular website metrics, you need to look at your return visits, how much time they're spending on the site, on the landing page, but then also coming back onto your main site, right? Those are some signals. Obviously, any direct conversions from the landing pages, we're going to be happy to receive, but do not panic if the conversion rate or the conversion volume is not high on the page itself, right? You just need to log and look at other places for signals of that consumption. How are you going to track consumption on a page? Yes, you're going to use a heat map tool. You can use any one of them. I'm very agnostic. Even today, someone's like, why are you using Hotjar? You should use Microsoft Clarity. I'm like, I don't care if it's heatmap.io. I don't care. If it gives you the data to show you click activity, hover activity, scroll activity, and where they're spending the most time and consuming the information on the page, I don't care what tool you use, right? So I have clients who use all across the board, and I'm happy to use all across the board, whatever they're using. But that heat map data is going to signal to you a lot of things that general website data is not going to do. And I'll give you an example of this. For a landing page that we created for a client, you know those blocks on a website that are tabbed? You know, it's like a very common block, very common.
Yeah.
And as a marketer or a website person, you're like, it's obvious. I would just click through that. It's not very obvious to every user. And I think that's where our bias and desensitization comes in. But in the heat map data, I saw we drove 2,000 sessions to this page. Not a single user clicked on a different tab. And the problem is that our entire value proposition for the product was in that block. So one of the first things that we did in optimizations is change that block. We had 5 value props in there, which were probably already too much. We consolidated into 3. We changed the block into a static on-page content block. And we already saw the traffic in response go up higher. So that specific page was like a 0.13% conversion rate, very low, went to a 3.14%. The scroll depth went from 30 to 50%. So more people were making it down to the page. So those are the signals that I look at. And those are things that you won't get unless you're looking at recordings, you're looking at where they're hovering, what are they reading, what are they selecting on that page. So I care more about how they're consuming information in B2B because that's what they need to make a decision, than how they're engaging with us, because that engagement will eventually come as long as they're consuming our information. Does that answer your question now?
Oh, 100%, 100%. Okay, that's great. So let's just talk about positioning. And I think positioning and copy. Okay. So I guess there's a lot of like people who get it wrong, I would assume. So what are your thoughts on it?
Oh my gosh. You ask me all these Anthony Pieri questions and he's going to listen to this and be like, he's going to be like, you just totally butchered that. I'm really good friends with him, but he always tells me I butchered. So he's probably better suited to answer the position questions, but I'll tell you this, which is you work with early stage, he works with early stage. He helps early stage companies with some of their positioning and messaging, right? For me, I typically work with growth stage companies. They're a little bit further in the journey. They have product market fit. Now they're just trying to scale. So they've seen some growth. They have a good foundation of customers and they're trying to grow from here. So when I meet with companies and they decide, okay, I want to do an engagement with Tas, I typically ask them for their positioning and messaging documents because they should probably already have that figured out, at least the first iteration or something that we can test. And then understanding, and for me, it's more about understanding their positioning rather than trying to direct it. So, one of the things that the Fletch guys always talk about is the contextual versus competitive positioning. So contextual is you're trying to position within a workflow. Like Calendly says, we make appointments, we make scheduling meetings easy. That's a workflow, right? And then you look at the competitive side. So someone like Arc Browser, who's like, they're on their homepage, it's the alternative to Chrome. So they position against, the incumbent in the market. So for me, when I'm talking to companies, I just try to understand what their positioning is, because that kind of dictates what the underlying theme is going to be on all of the landing pages. I want to marry that. So outside of the positioning, I'll ask them, I build this whole canvas out, which I know this is a pod. So usually I do like a full-blown screen share, but I do this buyer's journey map. And in the first part of the map, we talk about the market. What product category are they playing in? And how are they positioning in that category? And I will put my interpretation in there and I fill out this whole canvas and then I bring the team together, the company side, and then I have them react to it. Because one of the things I do is that internal and external, like holding a mirror to them and saying, this is what the outside thinks of you versus this is the internal documentation you gave me. Which one is right? Right? And so it's that whole security questionnaire versus vendor risk assessment. Are you positioning against your competitor or are you helping them with a workflow? We're helping questionnaires be automated so security teams aren't bogged down. Okay. So just understanding those types of things And then sometimes it sparks a discussion internally because they're like, two people on the marketing team have wildly different ideas of what the company's positioning is at. And I think that that's an internal indicator of something being wrong. And it's just me alerting them to the problem, but I'm not going to be the ones to fix it for them. So I always tell them, if you need that help, there are product marketers who are great. I am like at my core, a demand gen growth digital marketer who my client described has product marketing DNA, right? In order to create my outputs. But that's kind of not my area of expertise, but I do expect the companies to have at least a good idea of how they're positioning themselves in the market.
Okay, that's awesome. So so I have a ton of questions, but anyway, let's just talk about this. So if a user is coming from search ads versus a user that is coming from LinkedIn ads,
yeah.
So would you actually serve them the same page?
Yes, so you can. And I think this is where you're going to look at LinkedIn a little bit differently, which is cold targeting versus retargeting, right? So we call it like prospecting versus retargeting. So with the cold, you can still send them to that primary offer page that I told you about, if that was like the first touch point, right? Of a user and of a company. And then you can also use for your cold targeting layer, you can talk about the product details page as well. So it's like scheduling, making meeting scheduling easy for marketers. I was like, oh, what's that? And then you could go to that page, right? So you can create some awareness about the problem utilizing that. I'm very heavily focused on the search side of things, but I would say 90% of my clients run both search and LinkedIn ads, and we help them with the distribution strategy of both. And my whole thing is, again, not trying to add to their plate. I'm trying to take away and kill a couple of birds with one stone, right? So we do recommend those things. So then if someone does come to that main page, which is the primary offer or the marketing one, now we can retarget them with, hey, what are the alternatives in the market? Because that's probably the next logical step. Or, what's the pricing like? What about the reviews? And so the ads now can reflect what's on those landing pages, right? And you're just proactively reaching out to them versus reactively. But I think that that's the other piece, is like the landing page is the hub. And then you have all the spokes. The spokes are the channels, the ads that are going out there. So everyone always starts with the ads and then they cobble up a landing page. It needs to be the other way around. So I do think that then you can start to retarget that cold traffic with reviews for your product, pricing, demos at like the very, very, very last stage. You're not going to just straight up, retarget with the demo. They have to be kind of ready or have them seek you out. But we've seen a lot of success with that.
Okay, that's awesome. So I guess we are coming to the end. So Tess, if somebody has to learn more about this topic, which books, blogs would you recommend?
Folks' blogs? Did you say?
Books or blogs? Any source.
Oh, books or blogs. I don't think anybody's written a book on consumption rate optimization. Maybe I should be the first.
Yeah, I was thinking about it.
Maybe someday. I have a free landing page and website resource hub for B2B marketers. But it was started as solving my own problem, because LinkedIn is terrible about archiving content and making it searchable, that kind of thing. So I've been taking a lot of those posts and I put it into a hub, and mainly to reference my old content and see how much my own opinions have changed based on the data. So I will call myself out all the time, right? But I put all the posts together in there. Some of the stuff that I haven't even posted about, but I just put in there. There's like over 100 resources in there where I'm talking about consumption rate optimization, how to track, what kind of landing pages you need, how to implement like pre and post testing in the absence of an A/B testing tool, all of that stuff. Go to my LinkedIn profile, Tas Bober, TASBOBER. It's in my profile. It's free. Have at it. Go forth and conquer. And let me know what you think and how you'd want me to improve it as well. I'm always open. And I post about this stuff every week. So.
Okay, that's awesome. So I guess I'll be heading to it that right away. So, anything that I missed? You feel like you wanted to talk and maybe we just didn't get a chance?
No, I think that the biggest thing is, we just need to, it's a lot harder. I know, like I empathize with marketers. It's easy for me to sit on my high horse outside and be like, measure the signals. And then your CMO is like, okay, but where are my leads? But I think that there's a fundamental shift that needs to happen in B2B marketing, because it is a long game. And so there are some leaders who do understand that. There are others that don't. But I think that if you understand how to look for those signals, right, at least you will know compass wise that you're heading in the right direction. I'm trying to equip marketers with those tools that I wish I had, and I had time to think about it when I was internal, but I was working long hours, tons of projects all the time. It's hard to do the thinking. So it's almost like I got to step back and do the thinking for a lot of people. And so anyway, if you have any questions, please reach out to me. My DMs are open all the time. I share a lot of free knowledge. I don't gatekeep any of it. So let me know and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, Tess. So I actually had an amazing session. To be honest, I learned a lot myself.
Good.
So I was actually asking a lot of my own questions there, to be honest. So it was a great session.
Thank you so much for having me.
So thank you. Have an amazing day. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.